Okay, so welcome. I am going to record this session and be able to share it out with anyone who is not able to join us today. My goal is to not keep us for the whole hour, but really the idea is to just provide a good overview of what EOF is, what our program is, how we support students, what we expect of students if you become part of the EOF program, and then also talk about the financial verification process that some of you will be going through starting next week. So the 31st is when our next round begins, and provide some space to answer any questions around that and just to give a few more details about what that looks like. So let me see. So we only have one student with us right now. So instead of having you do what I was going to have do an activity was to let us know how you're doing. You can put it in the chat if you want to, if you would like to let us know how you're doing so far. So we're about, well, I guess like a week into the spring semester, which is, sometimes you either start off really happy or very anxious, or maybe a little bit of both. So you can let me know how you're feeling in the chat. I'd love to know how it's going so far for you. No wrong answers. So whatever you're feeling, please feel free to share. And then also while you're doing that, while you're thinking about how you feel, is there things that you specifically wanted to get out of this session today? So where you're like, I want to know more about the program, or I want to know more about financial verification, or if there's any, or it could be a general Rutgers question. So if you have questions about Rutgers or something happening on campus, we will do our best to answer it. So before I go forward, I probably should introduce myself. I realized I didn't even do that. I just went right into presentation mode, which is what I always do. So I'm going to stop. So I'll stop, and then I will introduce my colleagues as well that's here with me. So there's myself. I'm Randy Mayers. I am the Assistant Director of the EOF program, and I'm joined by Mrs. Sarah Rubright, who is one of our EOF counselors, and Mrs. Caroline Waters, who is also one of our EOF counselors. We also have one more counselor who is not present. He has to pick up his kids today from daycare, but Mr. Terrence Jones, so he is also part of our full-time staff. So I just wanted to make sure I did that before I move forward. Okay, so I want to look at the chat real quick. Yes, if you, Sebastian, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to share how you're feeling or any questions that you may have.
Hi, how are you doing? I think this is the first time I've formally introduced myself. I'm Sebastian Martinez. It's very nice to meet you guys today. As far as how I'm doing, this actually might be like the opposite of what you're used to. I'm actually very excited for this new semester. I feel like last semester I didn't do the best that I was capable of. And I think it had a lot to do with the gap from high school to college. I took a 2-year gap. And, the second half of the semester, I got into a good groove. But, now I have a clean slate and I'm absolutely engaged. I'm eating, living, and breathing school. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you very much for giving me this chance to speak.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I love when I hear students are excited. I think we always anticipate the struggle because that's our job, is to kind of navigate that, help you navigate the struggles. But I love hearing that, and what you mentioned, I think is very real about your first semester being a challenge. And I think no matter where you are, if it's a challenge, or as a first year student, or if you were a transfer student, that is very real, right? Like you're coming from a different environment, whether it was high school, different institution. You also talked about taking a break between high school and college. And that first kind of transition into school can be really difficult. And, there's two things you can really do with that. And you just kind of exemplified one way, which is like use it as motivation, or like, I'm excited, I'm going to go into this next semester. I know what I have to do now. I got through those 3 or 4 months of the fall semester, and I'm going to use that as a learning curve, and I'm going to just keep moving forward. So that's awesome. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. So I already introduced 2 of our team members, but I did want to make sure that I kind of gave you a overview of who our staff here is on campus. So we have, EOF is a program that is not just at Rutgers-Camden, it's throughout the state of New Jersey. And actually in Rutgers in general, I think there's like 7 total EOF programs. So on our campus, we only have 1, but in New Brunswick, there's like 5, and in Newark, there's 2. So EOF is not exclusive to Rutgers-Camden. We all operate very similarly in that we all provide support to students, but everyone's program is structured a little bit differently. So our program has 3 full-time counselors, 2 of which are with us today. And then there's myself as the assistant director, and then Dr. Marcia Bassong, who oversees many programs. So she oversees EOF, TRIO, and a bunch of other support and academic programs on campus. So if you ever in our office, you will see her walking around, but that is our team. So, and we but we support all students on campus. So I say that to say, because in New Brunswick, for example, the EOF programs are like partitioned by school. So there's like a different EOF program based on the school you're admitted into, while we cover all majors on campus. Okay, so I want to talk about what is the structure of EOF, what are the benefits of the program. So if you're watching this video or you're here, it's because you applied to the program or you're going through verification right now. But I recognize that even though you may have done that, you may not fully understand what EOF is or what it could provide you unless you've been a part of an EOF program before. So I'd say there's a lot of moving parts in EOF, but I think you often hear EOF, you hear the word support, you hear the word family, you hear the word caring, and those things are kind of brought out in different ways. The 2 main ways is counseling and workshops. So I introduced 2 of our counselors here tonight, but one of the biggest aspects of our program is that every student receives a counselor. It's a one-on-one interaction or relationship. This person is there to support you, to help you get through college, to help you meet your needs, your goals, the next steps you want to achieve, whether that's personally, career-wise, academically. Our job is really to support you, to meet you where you are, to help you be successful. Success looks different for everyone, so I'm not going to say what success means. Obviously, we want you to graduate. Obviously, we want you to get, into the next phase of your life, whether that's grad school, a job, or etc. But success isn't a blanket term. So success for you may be that I want to, become more of a leader on campus, or I want to become more confident or grow in these ways. I want to know how to public speak. I want to be able to study abroad. I want to do all these things. So success looks different for everyone. And so our goal is to help you reach that version of success, and to get you where you want to go, and not only be successful after you're at Rutgers, so you can, get into that grad school and get that job, but also be able to look back at your experience in college and say, like, look all the things that I've accomplished, look how I've grown and developed. So that's really where we come in. And we do that, you meet with your counselor regularly. So most of our students meet with their counselor 1 to 2 times a month. However, you are welcome to meet with them as often as you would like and reach out to them as often as you'd like. So they're kind of like an advocate, a mentor, a guide, a person that's going to help you as you kind of navigate the ups and downs of college. The other main thing about EOF that we're known for is that we do a lot of our own workshops and programs. And the purpose of that is to help you as you move and progress throughout your years of college. So when you first start out in college, you're really kind of focused on, getting used to the environment, getting used to college level work, time management, all of these kind of basic academic and personal skills. And then as you go along, you start thinking about the next step. So what do I need to be able to get into grad school? What do I need to be able to get a job? And so we'll do workshops and programs that give you those skills, those information and resources that are going to help you move along so that by the time you graduate, you have a well-rounded arsenal of things that you can pull from to help you kind of move to the next step. These workshops are typically exclusive to EOF students. We also often collaborate with other offices on campus, like the Career Center, the TRIO office, all these different people. But the great part is it's pretty exclusive, right? So we're not typically offering it to all the students on campus. You're in EOF, you're getting these exclusive like workshops and programs. You're also getting a lot of information from us about different opportunities that are popping up. So that could include things like summer programs. Like if you're interested in med school, for example, there's a lot of summer programs out there that help underrepresented students go through these summer programs that help you get into med school. There's a lot of leadership opportunities, travel opportunities, all of these things that come up and that are often shared within the EOF network and that we get to share out to our students. So our students get to learn about a lot of opportunities and resources just by being part of the program. We also are big advocates on campus. So one of the things we try to do with our students is, as much as we want you to take control of your education, we want you to be in charge and be an active participant. We will also help advocate for you in whatever you need. So if that's personal support, mental health support, financial support, we're going to help you and point you in the right direction to make sure that you are getting the resources and help that you need to be successful. Okay, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I do like to be transparent. And so, while we provide all these wonderful things and great, levels of support, we also expect things from our students, right? So we're not a financial aid program. We are a support program that provides a grant to help you with your financial aid. And so because we're not just a strictly financial aid program, that means we expect things of our students. So we expect you to be active participants and we expect you to be involved in the program to receive the grant. And so I'm going to quickly kind of go through some of this stuff. These are things that if you were admitted into the program that your counselor would go through with you in much more detail, and you would have the opportunity to ask as many questions as you need. But I do want to just talk a little bit about what we expect of you. So I call it the 3 C's, so complete compliance, check Canvas, and communicate. So as part of being an EOF student, I already talked about a little bit of this, but what we expect is that you're going to be regularly meeting with your EOF counselor and that you're going to be attending workshops. How many meetings that you have with your counselor and how many workshops that you attend is going to be dependent on your class status. So if you're a first-year student or a second-year student, you'll be attending more workshops and attending more meetings with your counselor. And then if you are a junior or a senior, you would be doing, a little bit less. So you'd be only required to meet with your counselor 1 time a month and attend less workshops per semester. As a new student in your first semester, once you completed financial verification, we ask that you meet with your counselor, regardless of what year you are, 2 times a month. And then you guys can figure out together what the workshops will look like for you. Sometimes students finish financial verification later in the semester, so there's less workshops to choose from. So it's also going to be dependent on where you are in the verification process or where we are in the semester when you complete the verification process. But really what is to remember is that you will have to regularly attend meetings with your counselor and regularly go to workshops. So those are really the 2 main components of the program. It's not a lot, but it does require for you to plan ahead and to be committed to the meetings that you set up. So I'm just showing you kind of some imagery of things that you would see if you were to become part of the program. You would sign a responsibility agreement that would talk about how many meetings you're supposed to have and workshops in the semester. And then you would also complete a workshop plan with your counselor. So you would look through all the things that we're offering this semester, both for students in your class year, open workshops that we might have available, and you would determine these are the workshops that I need to go to based on my requirements and based on my interests. So we offer a lot of open workshops. ranging from things around financial literacy, to mental health, to getting involved, communication practices. We have a lot of different topics, and we do that purposely so there's something for everyone. And so you and your counselor would work together to figure out what's going to help me and what's going to help me reach my goals. So I touched on this already, but as you're going through financial verification, you are welcome to attend my monthly check-in meetings that I will be having. So my goal with these check-in meetings is to bring students together who are newer this semester. Either it's your first semester or maybe it's your first year. You're going to be newer to EOF. And just have a space to check in, see how we're doing. We can, I'll have different topics each month, but also bring students together to get to know one another. I know one of the difficult parts about either transferring to a new school or starting in an environment like how we all started kind of virtually, is it can be difficult to connect with people. And so my goal with these meetings is for you to not only have a space to ask questions or to talk about things that are relevant to you, but to also connect with other students so you can, feel, have that connection with one another. That is also one of the perks of EOF. That's not something I really mentioned pretty well a few slides ago, but we are a small knit program. We only have right now we have about 250 students in our program. And while that sounds like a lot, it's really not. And it's very easy to make friends and form connections within our little program on campus. So it's a huge benefit because we provide spaces for you to connect with other students a lot easier than trying to have to find them, find friends or find people on your own. So that's also another great benefit of EOF. So my goal is through these check-in meetings is that you can start building those connections with others. We also ask that you meet with your academic advisor each semester. So some students who've been in EOF before at a community college, sometimes your EOF counselor is your academic advisor. At Rutgers-Camden, it's a little bit different. So you are required you have an academic advisor who's assigned to you, and that person's job is to help you pick out your classes, make sure you're on track for graduation. And make sure that you're fulfilling all the requirements for your degree. While your EOF counselor will help you and make sure that you're okay with your courses, that you're on track, everything is right. Your counselor's job is to help you kind of navigate everything else, right? So the support that you might need academically, the support that you might need in terms of like getting involved on campus and things like that. So it's important that you're regularly meeting with your academic advisor to make sure that you're on track for graduation, which is why we require that. You will also be, when you get admitted into EOF, you will be part of our EOF Canvas page. So I will, when you complete verification, if you're found to be eligible and you come into the program, I will reach out to you. I will confirm that for you. I will send you this stuff. I will tell you that you're going to be part of our Canvas page, and I'll let you know who your counselor is. But I just want to put this on your radar that Canvas is one of the main ways that we communicate with students. We put a lot of announcecements on there. All of our workshop information is on there. We put a lot of resources and opportunities. So things that come up and that we are asked to share out to students that we typically put on the Canvas page. So most of students now are very active with Canvas because a lot of your professors use Canvas now, but it's just something to be aware of that's going to be the main way you would get communication from the EOF program. Speaking of communication, I just also want to say that becoming part of EOF, one of the biggest things that we ask, and even through this financial verification process, is that you communicate, right? So the financial verification process in itself can be very overwhelming. It's a lot of work, especially for spring semester. It's a very short time window to turn in documents. And I am here during the verification process to support you, to help you, to answer as many questions as I can. But I can only do that if you reach out to me, right? So you will, and you already have gotten several emails from me saying, hey, I'm here to support. Let me know if you have questions. I will continue to send those. I will continue to follow up. But it's up to you to respond and to let me know if there's something that you're struggling with, and then I can do my best to support you. That doesn't change even when you get into EOF, right? So if you get into EOF, you're done with financial verification, you have a counselor, you're all good to go. We still expect you to be actively communicating, right? We realize that you're not just a student, Many students are several other things. They have juggle several other roles. You might be working, you might be a caregiver, you might be a parent, you are a sibling, son, daughter, you're all of these things. And with that become responsibilities and expectations that can often really pull you in different directions and sometimes pull you away from school. And sometimes things that happen that, you know, really impact you in different ways. So you might be struggling with mental health, you might be struggling with finances, food insecurity, home insecurity. You might be just overwhelmed and unmotivated. There's a lot of things that happen. You're here in college for 4 to 5 years. That's a big chunk of your life. So things are going to ebb and flow. So all we ask is that throughout your time in EOF, whether it's through verification or in the program, that you're constantly communicating with us, with your counselor, with me. You're always welcome to reach out to me as well, so that we can support you in the best way possible to make sure that you're successful. So I want to talk about funding. So if you're going through verification and we find that you're eligible, you complete all the documents, you're good. There's 2 different levels of funding based on your residency. So residency is determined by if you're either living on campus in your own residence, so maybe you have an off-campus apartment, or you're living with roommates, then it would be $825 per semester. If you're living at home and commuting, it would be $700, and that would go directly towards your tuition and fees. The important thing to remember, and this follows you even when you're become part of EOF and you're done with verification, is that we can't give out EOF funds unless you're clear with both your financial aid. So sometimes the financial aid office asks for additional documentation on things. You always have to pay attention to your financial aid portal and make sure that there's nothing being asked of you. But also there's New Jersey FAMS, and so New Jersey FAMS is it is our state funding system. And so that's where you would get EOF from. That's where EOF is dispersed from. And then also the tuition aid grant. The tuition aid grant is a big chunk of usually a lot of students' aids. It can be up to like $5,000, I think, a semester, which is a good amount of money. But unless you complete all things that HESA is also asking you or NJ FAMS is asking of you, then they could hold those funds, including EOF. So it's up to you to make sure that those things are in check, that you're clear, that you don't owe any documents. And it's also important to remember that we don't share documentation. So if you did, submit a tax transcript to the Rutgers Financial Aid Office, they're not going to share that with HESA. They're not allowed to share those documents. So you would still have to submit that to HESA if they were asking for that. So I just usually tell students, it's just a regular practice, like maybe you set a reminder on your phone or something that every couple weeks you just log into your accounts and be like, everything good? Are we good? Okay. Just to get into the habit of making sure that you don't owe anything to anyone and that your funding is good to go. You will also get like a zillion emails from the Office of Financial Aid if you have a bill or if your awards have not been released. So that's also a good way to know, like, oh, there might be something wrong. You should be getting a ton of emails. So just making sure you're checking your emails as well. Okay. So some of you have not started financial verification yet, and you will be starting in the following week. And so we did hold a whole different information session about financial verification where we got into a lot of detail with our contact in financial aid, Mrs. Valon Cortez. She talked in detail about what does this entail, what do you expect, what kind of documents are you going to have to request. And so if you did not watch that video, although I believe I sent it to everybody, if you did not, I put the QR code up here and it will take you right to our YouTube link. I will also send that back out when I send this presentation later. But I highly encourage you, if you have not watched it, to watch it because it will inform you about what this process is like. We have a very short turnaround, right? So it starts Monday and all documents are due the 21st. And that's because I have until through the first week of March to fund students for EOF, and then my ability to fund students closes. So it's a very short time window, which means that you'd have to be really on top of this process to get it done. Part of the big reason that I wanted to do this information session and that I've been reaching out is because I really want you to think about if you're going to be able to commit to this process. as much as I want students to be part of the EOF, this process can be very overwhelming. It's a lot of work. And you're also in your spring semester, which is also a lot of work, and you might have a lot of things going on. So just making sure that you are ready and able to commit. We will do our best to make it easy for you. So I will, answer questions. We will attach documents for you. We will, send you tutorials. I will connect you with people that you need, that if you need help, you can also reach out to the financial aid office. They will support you. But it's going to require a lot of upkeep on your part, a lot of checking your email, a lot of communication. So making sure that you have the ability to do so. And a big thing that I did mention to most students at this point is if you do plan to move forward, you're like, yes, I'm committed, I want to do it, then you're going to want to request your tax documents now because the IRS takes forever. I'm going to show you after I'm done with the presentation some resources that you can use to try to request your documentation. But the IRS is usually the biggest issue that students encounter because we need tax transcripts and non-filer statements for mostly everyone. And they can take weeks to send them to you. And that's usually what holds up students. So if you plan to move forward, in my emails to you, I talked about the different ways you can determine what documents you might need based on your situation. But I'm just going to show you in a few minutes how you can just even request tax transcripts to begin with. Okay, so some quick wrap up before I stop sharing and showing you some other resources is just EOF is a huge comprehensive support program. We love our students. We want to help you and be successful, and we will do everything we can to support you. And so being part of this program gives you a really unique opportunity to not only receive a different type of support than other students receive, but just also be part of a community on campus of other students, of staff, of faculty who really care and want to move forward. So it's a really great to have a built-in network and support system. But in order for that to work, we need you to be active participants. So you're going to be regularly meeting with a counselor. You're going to be regularly attending workshops and communicating. So making sure that you understand that before you move forward. That financial verification begins next week. For those of you who have not already started, all documents are due, whether you start next week or whether you started back in late December, are due February 21st, so that we can move forward with getting you funded for the semester. And just making sure you're checking everything, right? Check your email, check your financial aid portal, check NJ-FAMS, just get into a habit of constantly logging into things and checking just to make sure nothing slipped by you. And lastly, I already said this, but it's worth saying again, communication is key. So reaching out to me during the verification process or at any time afterward, but also when you get into the program, making sure that you reach out to your EOF counselor. So most of you have my phone number and my email. So I'm going to end here and I'm going to share somewhere else, but I'm going to check the chat. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sarah, for navigating the chat for me. Okay. So I'm going to share my other screen. So this was this out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to briefly show how you can do the tax transcript stuff. So this is the IRS website. So if you are like, I need to request tax stuff, you'd go to irs.gov and then you're right at the top and you'd go to get your tax record. And so there's several ways you can do it. The first way, and what I suggest everyone tries, although most people have a really hard time with this, is to get your transcript online. You have to create an account and they have to verify your identity. And then you can go ahead and download it directly. It comes like as a PDF form. So if you're able to do it this way, I highly suggest trying that first. Most students who have a hard time with this are students, like a lot of students have a hard time getting an online account, but their parents might be able to get an online account if they need their tax transcript. So it's but sometimes you don't have all the information that they need to verify your account. So it can be a pain, but I suggest trying request online first, because if you can just download it directly, that will solve like 90% of your problems during the verification process. But so this is step one, right? You try to request it online. If you try this process and they're like, sorry, you can't verify your identity and you can't download it, then you would move to the next step. So the alternative to requesting online is to get transcript by mail. So what you would do is you would click this. It's going to give you this message. You say, okay, great. And then you put in the information. So you're putting your social security number, your date of birth, your street address, and your postal code. And then on the next page, it's going to ask you what tax year you're looking for and what type of transcript you're asking for. So we are looking for tax return transcripts, not account transcripts, not a 1040. We want the tax return transcript. And you'll see that option, and that's what you'd ask for. The way to determine what you need, I'm not going to really talk about that in detail now because it's a lot, but I did put it in email. Essentially, if you've had EOF before, if you were a transfer student, you had EOF at your previous institution, you're most likely going to only need 2019 tax information. If you've never had EOF before, so maybe you're a first year student or you're a transfer student and this is your first time being part of EOF, you're going to need 2 years of tax information. So 2018 and 2019. That is based on your statuses, right? So I put in my email the different ways you can determine if you are considered dependent. So your parents claim you. Typically, when you're under the age of 24, you are considered dependent, unless you have a special circumstance in which you've declared independency. But if you are under 24, and you're considered dependent in the years 2018 and 2019, you would need parents' tax information. If you're considered independent, then you would only need your own. And so I will resend my email when I send this information out about how you can determine, but you will know once you start verification next week. If you have not already started, they will tell you exactly what documents you need. So it might be useful for you to just, in the meantime, if you're like, I'm scared, I don't want to ask, I don't want to request something I don't need it. I mean, the worst case is you get something you don't need, right? But is to at least try to make the online account. If you can't make the online account, then try to do it by can't get transcript by mail. I actually just tested this on myself the other day. So I wanted to see how long it would take me to get my transcript, and it took about 5 days. So it's pretty quick if you're able to do it this way. The other and the last resort is to send in a form, which I will show you. There is a 4506T form. You fill this out and you actually have to physically mail it to the IRS, and then they physically mail you your transcripts back. This is like the last resort because it takes forever and the mail is a holdup and it just takes a long time. But that, I just wanted to give you a quick brief overview of how you get transcripts and what that looks like. Again, I will send that information to you when I send this video out, and then also as we go through the verification process. That was basically it. So I'm going to stop recording.